Hello, Curtis Jones. Uh, I'm pretty new to YouTube. I'm a writer and a minister, and lately I've been working to list all of the chapters of every book I have written on YouTube for folks who can't really afford to buy them. But I want everybody to see them, and I especially want the children to see and hear them because the lessons I learned as a child my children may not have got to learn, and I'm sure my grandchildren haven't. All my books are listed here on my web address, which is Curtis Jones Books, Squarespace.com. I'm also listed on Amazon because most of my publishing, or all my publishings, are done through Amazon. And just look for Curtis L. Jones author page, Amazon, and I'm sure it'll show up. Uh, I've got 14 books written. Two of them are combinations of like Dad's Old Truck 1 and 2, which is what I'm reading out of now. And then Love Endures All Things 1, 2, and 3 is the second one. And those are 290, 350 pages or something like that long. So they won't be going on here, only the 12 main books that aren't duplicated. But they were duplicated because it made it less expensive for people to buy the books. But let's go on with what we're doing here. This is chapter 5, titled The Chicken Dinner: Childhood Memories from the 50s. Sunday morning. We usually went to church on Sunday mornings, but when we had visitors, we would stay home and prepare a Sunday dinner. We were living on a farm and we raised most of the staples that we had to eat. Mom did lots of canning and putting up of what we raised, like potatoes and carrots and beets, as well as okra, corn, tomatoes. Mom canned as much as she could can, but some things were kept in a root cellar to be used as needed. Well, when we had visitors for Sunday dinner, it was a spectacular event. Sunday dinners were very nice every Sunday, but a visitor's Sunday dinner was like a buffet at home, especially when Mom's sister, Aunt Helen, and her family came. We were served just about every dish we had preserved that year and fresh meat and all you could eat as well. I don't mean, I didn't mean to make it sound like we ever went hungry, but that day we could make pigs of ourselves. We often did because we did not eat at the table with mom and dad, but the kids would all gather outside under a large tree or two and sit together as to help keep the dogs at bay because we had a couple of big dogs. The day started like a Sunday, and mom told me and Joe, who was visiting with his whole family, to stay close and we would be allowed to catch and kill the chickens for dinner because they were live when we got up that morning. That was a great honor and a privilege for both Joe and me. We loved the idea of doing that. Dad usually killed the chicken for dinner. Now we were going to be allowed to do the job. Joe had done this job before at his home, but this would be my first time and it would prove my worth. When you are the chosen one for this duty, you must first make preparation, like not letting the bird out of the pen where they spent the night for protection from the wild ones. But being young, we had failed to note some of the finer points of the duties. As was my regular job, every morning I let the chickens out after feeding them, and my first mistake was made. And it certainly would not be the last one of this chore. The chicken may not be a smart bird, but it can outsmart a 9-year-old boy. Now that I have released the chickens, I had to recapture the condemned birds. Those who had been condemned were almost always the young roosters. They could not lay eggs, and they would continually start fighting the older and proven roosters who had already established a pecking order. I think I enjoyed seeing the young roosters start fighting. It was an awesome thing for a 9-year-old to see. The young roosters would walk around the old cocks and stick their heads out in front of their bodies and hold his wings to the side stretched out and just a little down. The feathers on his neck would bristle out and stand out on end. He would keep his eye on the old rooster and walk sideways as he circled the old bird. The young rooster would soon begin to squawk and crow and flap his wings to show his power. When this kind of behavior began, the young rooster would be assigned for food, and it would not be more than a week before we were feasting on him, usually the following Sunday. When we had to kill the older roosters, we usually had chicken and dumplings because the older roosters were very tough and hard to eat when fried. But when boiled enough, he would become tender enough to eat. Mom's dumplings were very simple. They were just flour, salt, and water, which made them like noodles, but thicker and chewier. Very good. These chickens were worldwide from seeing the axe on the necks of the younger roosters in the past. They had they also had to deal with chicken hawks and foxes and other wild creatures that thought of them as food too. These roosters were very wary of being caught after they were released from the chicken pen. If they remained in the pen, we could corner the roosters in the chicken coop and catch them more easily. But having let them out, we had to throw chicken scratch food, that is chicken food, out to regain their interest and lower their caution enough to catch them. I would use just enough to catch their attention and leave a trail of food back into the chicken pen. Once the condemned rooster came in, I was able to catch him. We had two this day, and Joe and I were going to be the butchers and kill these birds. We had seen this done by the wringing of their necks, and we were going to do the same thing. The axe on the neck was no faster than a good ring of the neck. The ringing was more exciting to both Joe and to me. When an adult wrung the neck off of a chicken, you would you could you hold the chicken by the head and pick him up off of the ground and do one quick swing into the air in a circle, making a big O. And on the downward stroke, you stop at the bottom and jerk straight toward the sky. The head is severed in an instant. This is easy for adults, but a little more difficult for a 9-year-old boy. Joe was a little stronger than I was, and he was a little taller too. This meant that he had a longer reach and a wider arc to his swing. The chicken was decapitated on the first swing. Pardon me. When you kill a chicken in this way, you allow the bird to dump or jump and flay until it has bled out and is no longer moving about. The inexperienced person will often wring a neck and leave the skin intact, and blood is captured in the skin or neck skin, and this is harder to clean when dressing the bird. Joe had learned to wring necks from his uncle Argus over in Ozark. Joe had become a pro wringer. He knew what he was doing. I, on the other hand, had never been taught what Joe knew, and I was just going to do this by what I had seen others do. When you repeat what you have only seen, you are lacking in the finer points of an endeavor. Never underestimate the power of teaching. I had seen perhaps 100 chickens' heads removed this way. Many people did this when killing the chickens. I was ready for my turn when the bird Joe had killed finally came to a stop, and it was ready for the hot water bath to remove the feathers. I took hold of my bird, and he weighed about 4.5 pounds. That doesn't sound like much, and it is not much when you are used to carrying a 5-gallon bucket of horse or hog feed to a trough. I learned that day that weight is relative to the chore you are doing. With the bird held firm in my little hand, this had to be done with one hand to complete the full 360-degree circle required to sever the head. With two hands involved, you made an incomplete circle and it was not as smooth. You almost had to stop at the apex to shift your own weight to finish the circle and allow the body to rotate so the other arm could do the rest of the work in the circle. This was a one handed job. I was a lefty to start with and learned to do things right handed, so I was a little clumsy to start with. To this day, I still do some things left handed. As I began my swing, my heart was racing with excitement at the prospect of my first ringing. I wanted to be able to do what everyone else could do. I took a deep breath and concentrated on the task at hand. I could see myself swinging the bird high into the air and on the downward stroke, running wide and smooth out as far as I could reach, and then at the very bottom of the swing, more quickly into the upward motion, swing more quickly into the upward motion. This was simple enough, I thought, and with that breath, I began the swing. I pulled up on the bird and was surprised at how heavy it was with just one hand to do the lifting. This did not stop me, for I was determined to finish what I was entrusted to do. Now, as the full weight of the bird came to be supported fully by my right arm, I began to struggle with the swing. I was able to get the bird into the apex of the swing, and by no means was it a half circle. Now, at the top of the circle, I thought I would neatly, nearly finished. I was nearly finished. I was not going to disappoint myself or anyone else. The weight of the bird disappeared at that point, and a feeling of sigh of relief rushed through my heart. It was time for the downward stroke. Joe had told me to hold tight as I hit the bottom because the bird became very heavy when it was time to jerk upward. Now, pushing upward with all my strength, I pulled my arm down as the bird moved away from me. I left, I felt powerful and in control once again. Now the bird is out as far as I can reach as we move toward the ground in a smooth motion. This was easier than the lifting was. I had not considered the force I was generating with this movement. Gravity was assisting me with all her grace and power behind my control. I had confidence now. As the bird moved past the halfway point of the downswing, its weight quickly began to change, and my control was waning, and the power of gravity was gaining and growing. Downward, the bird moved, and now at the three-quarter point of the bird was now as heavy as the bucket of food I carried with two hands to the larger animals every day. I had reached the end of my meager strength, and gravity had not yet shown her weakening. I began to realize I was not going to be able to pull up at the right time. At the bottom of the swing, and time to come to pull up with all my strength on the head of that rooster, this should cause the force of gravity to sever the chicken's head as the chicken's body pulled away. This, however, required that you maintain your grip on the chicken's head, which is the resistance point to gravity's work. I could not keep my grip on the rooster's head, and at the bottom of the swing, the rooster's head slipped away and the bird fell to the ground with a thud. I felt blood rush to my brain, and I became lightheaded as I realized that I had utterly failed to wring the bird's neck. Oh, my hand had begun to the upward movement as I jerked up, but the bird's head was not in my hand. It remained firmly attached to the rooster's body. It had not even harmed the rooster except for the impact with the ground that had addled the bird so that Joe caught it before he got away again. Oh, the shame I felt as I came to grips with this unmitigated turn of events. Mom and Aunt Helen had been watching the whole thing, and Mom said, "Be careful not to bruise the bird or to break any bones on him." I said to Joe, "Would you wring his neck for me?" I did not try to wring another chicken's neck. After that, I used the axe to kill the roosters. When you kill and dress animals at home, you end up with some delightful things for young boys to play with. The head of the chicken are such fun to chase the girls with as you run and keep the eyes of the rooster on that person you're chasing. The head is only one of the joys a boy gets from the rooster that had been displayed dressed for dinner. I'm sorry. We also get the feet. The feet, there are 2 feet from one killing, and the foot is far more fun than the head because you can pull the ligaments that stuck out on some feet and it causes the foot to contract. It looks like it is grabbing for you. This is why the foot was my favorite part of a dressed chicken. We could play with that old foot for an hour or more until the girls got tired of running. Now, the Sunday dinner. Sunday dinner was always important in my family. It was the best meal of the week most of the time. It was when we would have company if we had company in any given week. This Sunday dinner would be one I would remember because I had helped in the killing of the main course. I had also played with the head and the feet of what would be dinner. When it was time to serve the chicken, I asked Mom to give me the gizzard and a drumstick of the chicken I helped kill. And she said that she knew I would want them and that those were the parts she had given me already. Moms are wonderful creatures, aren't they? There were 4 legs and 2 gizzards, and I know that she would not fry and keep those parts separate for me, but to a 9-year old it seemed entirely possible. Farm life teaches a young person lessons that cannot be learned in town. In town, as was usual, all the kids took our plates and found a good place in the yard to settle down and enjoy the chicken dinner Mom and Aunt Helen had prepared. As we ate, Joe and I sat on the tailgate of the old truck and discussed how the dinner would not have been possible without our work, and the girls agreed. We felt quite manly that day. I hope you enjoyed this short story. Next time, I will do chapter 6, which is entitled The Long Trip, and it reflects the way a young mind works. Like and subscribe if you enjoy these stories. Let your children watch them. Let them subscribe to this channel. I've never written anything that I wouldn't want to tell my own grandchildren, and they enjoy these stories. There seems to be more conscious involvement than in watching a program on a television or a little handheld screen. God bless you, and I will talk to you and see you the next time I post. Well, I guess I got shut off.